The man's hand found her waist like he'd been holding it for years. "Don't turn around," he murmured against her ear. "Don't speak. You're in danger. Play along." Lumi didn't flinch. The jazz club swam around them, brass bleeding through smoke, ice against glass, the low murmur of people who'd stopped watching each other. His palm was warm, steady enough to convince anyone, but she felt the faint tremor in his ring finger, the way his breath caught when two men filled the doorway. She catalogued him quickly. Late 30s. Dark hair falling across his forehead. A suit that cost more than her rent but had been slept in. Eyes the color of black coffee, scanning every exit. The men at the door were different, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, wearing suits that whispered violence rather than expensive. They moved like predators who knew their prey had nowhere to go. "Walk with me," the stranger said. Casually. "Like you're bored." She let him steer her off the barstool. Her copy of The Stranger stayed on the counter, spine cracked. He shortened his stride so she wouldn't stumble. He positioned himself between her and the door, as if her protection mattered, even though he just made her a target. Calculating, she thought. But not cruel. The men were 30 feet away. 20. 10. Their eyes swept past her, decorative, irrelevant, and landed on him. Recognition flickered. Satisfaction. The stranger's hand tightened on her waist. Just slightly. Just enough. He doesn't have a plan, she realized. He had a reflex, and now he's improvising. They were 5 feet from the door when she stopped. "Darling," she said, her voice lazy and intimate, carrying just enough to reach the men behind them. "You forgot my book." His body went still. She felt his brain recalibrate. He turned, and she caught his profile, sharp jaw, exhausted eyes. "Your book," he repeated. "Surprise, maybe respect." "The one I was reading." She let theatrical annoyance creep in. "Honestly, the way you treat my things," he exhaled, a single breath carrying all his tension. "Stay here." He walked back to the bar. The two men faltered at his sudden change in direction, their momentum broken. One glanced at Lumi, assessing her. She met his gaze without flinching. The stranger returned, her book in hand. He tucked it under his arm and reached for her waist again, this time with something lighter in his touch, an acknowledgement. "How's that?" he murmured. "Better. Now get me out of here before I change my mind." They walked through the door together. The two men didn't follow. The alley behind the violet hour smelled of rain and jasmine. Lumi pulled her cardigan tighter and watched the stranger check over his shoulder 3 times before he exhaled. "You're safe," she said. "They're not coming." "You don't know that." "I know you're not the kind of man who drags strangers into his problems without desperation." She studied him in the orange streetlight. That took nerve. And a fair amount of fear. He turned to face her fully. The shadow of a beard, a loose tie, eyes that watched her with an intensity that would have made most women step back. She didn't step back. "Thank you," he said. "For playing along." It was the book, really. She gestured to the copy. "It's a library copy. Due next Tuesday." He stared. "You risked a shootout for a library book." "I have a system." She extended her hand. "Lumi." He looked at her palm, then her face. "Alexander." "Just Alexander." "For now." "Fine. Then for now, you owe me a drink and a new library card." He almost smiled. "I don't think that's wise." If they're tracking me, they're not tracking you tonight. She tilted her head. Two men, no backup, no car. They lost you. Even professionals need sleep. How do you know they're professionals? Amateurs would have started shooting the moment they saw you. She said it simply. You can't learn that instinct. Alexander's expression shifted, more wary. Who are you? Someone who reads too much. And notices too much. She smiled. A curse. I think it's a skill. He stepped closer, close enough to smell cedar and bergamot beneath the whiskey. You knew exactly what you were doing. The book wasn't impulse. It was a test. Lumi held her ground. Was it? You wanted to see if I'd come back for it. And did you? I came back. You did. She smiled, private. That's why you're still alive. He went still. What do you mean? She reached up, slowly, giving him time to stop her, and touched his left hand, where the tremor had been. You were afraid, but not of them. Your hand only started shaking when I stood to leave. You're not afraid of being caught. She met his eyes. You're afraid of what you're going to do next. Something cracked behind his careful mask. He realized she'd seen him, truly seen him, in a way that had nothing to do with his performance. Don't pretend to understand, he said, rougher. I'm not pretending. She stepped back. I'm just telling you what I observed. She turned to walk away. Lumi. He stood in the alley, the book under his arm, his mask cracking. Why didn't you scream? When I grabbed you. Why didn't you fight? Because you asked nicely. She smiled slightly. And because people who need help usually don't ask for it. They just reach. She walked away before he could answer. 3 days passed. Lumi didn't expect to see Alexander again. Men with secrets and pursuers didn't stick around. So when the white flowers arrived at the shop, she didn't immediately connect them to him. Janine, her assistant, held up the arrangement. White orchids. Gorgeous. Dendrobium, Lumi said. Wariness. And seeking. Ominous. Janine set them down. Is this from that lawyer in the news? Lumi took Janine's phone. The headline, Real Estate Moguls Indicted in Massive Money Laundering Scheme. The photo was grainy, but she recognized the profile, Alexander Sterling, the whistleblower, in hiding. She set the phone down and reached for the flowers. Her fingers brushed a small card hidden among the stems. No signature. It said, you don't know who you're protecting. Be smarter than that. She folded the card into her pocket. Janine, take your break. I'll handle the front. He was waiting across the street, sitting on the fountain, his face tipped to the weak sun. He was in a different suit, but the tie was loose, his hair longer. He looked exhausted. She watched him before pushing through the door. He turned too fast, too alert, and stood when he saw her. I brought your book, he said, holding out the stranger. I thought you might want it back. Lumi took it. The spine was cracked more, someone had been reading. Did you like it? Massault is an idiot. An honest one. Same thing. He shoved his hands in his pockets. Can we talk somewhere private? She looked past him. A black sedan had been parked across the street for 6 minutes, engine running. One question. Did you send the flowers? Confusion. No. She nodded slowly. Then we have a problem. She held the door open. Come inside. We have tea. He stared. Lumi, someone else knows you're connected, then you'll be inside, where there are fewer windows. She raised an eyebrow. Tea or not? He followed. In the back room, mismatched armchairs, warm lamplight, she made chamomile for him, rooibos for herself. You remembered, he said. From the bar. I remember everything. They sat in silence. From the front, Janine hummed to the radio. The sedan was still outside. I have a file, Alexander finally said. Evidence, 97 people. 87 still free. They know I turned. They've been looking. The men at the bar were just the beginning. He rubbed his eyes. I can't keep running. She watched him. And you want to hide here. One night. That's all. I need to sleep. Figure out my next move. He met her eyes. I know it's a lot to ask. Wait here. She crossed to a hidden door behind a tapestry and pushed it open, a small reading room with a cot, a chair, no windows, one entrance. Then she pulled a burner phone from a drawer. One night, she said, turning back. And you're going to tell me everything about the black sedan across the street. His face tightened. I didn't know they'd, I'm not blaming you. She snapped a photo of the sedan through the blinds. I'm preparing. You asked me to trust you. I need to know what I'm walking into. She sat across from him, waiting. He stared at her, something shifting in his eyes, respect, maybe. 2 years ago, I was their best lawyer. I made things disappear. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone. He looked down at his hands. But I was. Then a kid I'd helped put away, innocent, framed, wrote to me from prison. I couldn't look away. I started copying files. 18 months of it. They never noticed. He laughed, hollow. Now half the city wants me dead. Lumi looked at the book on the table. She'd underlined passages, scribbled notes. She opened it. He'd left pencil marks, thin lines next to her own underlines, and a response to her margin note, honesty isn't the same as feeling. He'd written, but feeling isn't the same as performance. She looked up. The kid, Marcus Webb. He got out. He's in college now. Sends me Christmas cards. She closed the book. The sedan outside, they're watching. If they were planning to act, they'd have acted. They're waiting. She pulled out the burner phone. And I'm going to call in a favor. She made the call from the back alley, voice barely above a whisper. It's me. I need a name. Black sedan, Illinois plates, outside my shop. A low, amused voice answered. You still have my number. You still answer. That's what matters. Keys clicking. Clean plates, registered to a shell company, one that got hit in the sterling case. Who'd you piss off, Lumi? Not me. Him. The lawyer. The one they're calling a hero. There's no such thing. She watched the sedan. Just people who get tired of losing. I'll send you more. The line clicked dead. She pocketed the phone and walked back inside. Alexander stood at the reading room door. Who was that? Someone who owes me a favor. The sedan is connected to one of your shell companies. They're not here to kill you, they're here to find out what you have left. What I have left is the file. They'll kill you anyway. You know that. So let's stop pretending there's a clean exit. She held his gaze. One night. Stay here. Sleep. And in the morning, we figure out how to make them come to you instead of the other way around. Lumi, I know what I'm doing. Her voice was calm, certain. I've been doing it my whole life. He fell asleep within minutes. Lumi lingered in the doorway, watching the rise and fall of his chest, his face relaxing into something younger. He's been running for months. She stepped inside. His copy of The Stranger sat open on the floor. She picked it up, saw his pencil marks, saw his response to her old note. He'd read it. He answered her, years later, in the margins of a book she'd left behind. She sat in the armchair and let herself watch him sleep. At 2 a.m, a strangled sound woke her. He was sitting up, pale, sweating, eyes open but not seeing. She crossed to the cot. Alexander. You're safe. You're in my bookshop. No one knows you're here. His gaze snapped to her face. Recognition. Lumi. I'm here. I saw, he shook his head. Doesn't matter. It matters if it's keeping you awake. He laughed, hollow. I can't remember the last time I slept through the night. She reached for the Little Prince on the nightstand. Have you read this? He shook his head. It's about a prince who leaves his rose, travels, learns lessons, but realizes too late the rose was the most important thing. She flipped to a marked page. It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important. The things we fight for matter because we fought for them. He watched her, quieter now. What are you afraid of losing? Myself. She smiled, wry. I've been a spectator in my own existence. And now? Now I'm not sure I chose right. He was quiet. Then his fingers brushed hers on the blanket. You chose exactly right. You just didn't know it yet. She didn't pull away. Dawn crept through the high windows. Lumi had dozed in the armchair. Alexander was already awake, watching her. The tea helped, he said. The reading. The everything. I slept 4 hours. 4 hours is barely enough. It's a start. He pulled a small velvet pouch from his pocket. I have to go. Trial starts next week. But I want you to have this. He held out the pouch. Inside was a heavy signet ring, initials AS. My grandfather's ring. The only thing I own that isn't tainted. I want you to hold it. As proof I'll come back. Why? Because I need to know someone's waiting. I've never run toward a person before. But I want to run toward you. Lumi looked at the ring, warm from his body. She thought about the pencil marks in her book. The way he'd said you chose exactly right. I've let people come and go, she said. But this, she closed her fingers around the ring. This is the first time I've wanted to be part of the story. He left at 7. She watched from the window, the ring in her pocket. The sedan was gone, her contact had made it clear watching was a bad investment. He's not coming back, a voice whispered. But she didn't believe it. 2 days later, the news broke. Alexander Sterling had turned over 147 pieces of evidence. The moguls were in custody. But someone had been missed. The headline, 2 key witnesses disappear. Whistleblower lawyer feared dead. She called his number. Voicemail. 5 times. Nothing. Then a man appeared at her shop, suit that didn't fit, eyes cataloging exits. Can I help you? Lumi asked, calm. I'm looking for a book. About loyalty. And betrayal. We have a section. She stepped out. Is it a gift? His gaze drifted toward the back room. Heard you had a visitor. Tall guy. Dark hair. Needed a place to crash. We get a lot of people. I sent him to the library down the street. He studied her. The library. Science fiction. He wanted a first edition. I told him we specialize in used fiction. She smiled. Sent him on his way. You're a good liar. I'm a good bookseller. There's a difference. He left. Her phone buzzed. Don't trust the flowers. He's not who you think he is. She was closing up when the second message came. A photo, Alexander tied to a chair in a warehouse, blood at his lip, bruises on his temple. The text, stay out of it, or we'll keep you quiet. She stared at the screen. Her hands were steady, but her heart pounded. He's alive. They want leverage. She could call the police. She could step away, back to being a spectator. But she remembered his pencil marks. His hand brushing hers. I've never run toward a person before. She typed an anonymous tip to the prosecutor's office, describing the warehouse from the photo's background. Then she grabbed her keys. The warehouse was on the industrial outskirts, hulking gray, roof collapsed, windows boarded. Through a crack, she saw 2 guards pacing, a third slumped in a chair. She ducked behind a dumpster and watched. 7 minutes, that's how long it took them to circle. 7 minutes, then they passed the side door. She counted. 7 minutes on the dot. A forklift sat just inside, keys in the ignition. But she'd have to cross 20 feet of open ground. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to an audio file, a recording of Alexander's breathing, the rustle of sheets, the word Lumi spoken in his sleep. She'd kept it without thinking. She set the phone on the ground facing away from the warehouse and pressed play. The sound carried through the quiet air. Inside, a shout. Footsteps heading toward the source. She ran for the door. The forklift coughed to life after 3 tries. She drove it through the side door, metal screeching, aimed at the chair. The guards turned. One reached for his gun. She slammed the forklift into the chair, knocking it over, sending Alexander sprawling. She jumped, grabbed his arm, pulled him toward the door. Go! Now! They ran. A gunshot went wide. The forklift crashed against a support beam. They burst into the parking lot, and the police arrived. They didn't stop until they were 6 blocks away. Alexander leaned against a wall, bound wrists, breathing ragged, face bloodied. You, he said, hoarse. What were you thinking? I was thinking you were tied to a chair. She pulled a pocket knife and cut the zip ties. The police, I called them. They're there now. You called them. I sent a tip. I've already been talking to your prosecutor's office. He stared at her. You could have been killed. So could you. That's different. He caught her hand, the one with the wipe cleaning his face. You didn't have to come. I know. She held his gaze. I wanted to. He pulled her close, pressing his face into her hair. She felt his shoulders shake, relief, exhaustion. And then her own hands began to tremble. The blood. The bruises. How close it had been. How did you find me? He whispered. The photo. The background. She pulled back. And something else, the guards were nervous. They kept looking at the main entrance. Someone else was coming. Someone who scared them. She met his eyes. Who else is coming for you? In the back of the police car, she gave statements with calm precision. She left out the audio recording. When it was over, Alexander turned to her. I'm not going to ask you to stay. You've done enough. If you want to leave, I understand. And if I don't? He blinked. Why wouldn't you? Because. She pulled out his ring. I haven't given this back. He stared. You kept it. I told you I'd hold on to it. She pressed it into his palm. Just put it on. Then we'll figure out what comes next. He slid the ring onto his finger, where it fit like it had always belonged. I'm done running, he said. Good. She touched his hand. Because I was getting tired of chasing you. He laughed, broken, hopeful. You're not going to make this easy. I never do. They went back to the Violet Hour the next night. The press had descended on his hotel, but no one thought to look for him here. Same table, she observed. Same book. He closed her copy of The Stranger. I want your attention. It's a library book. Due Tuesday. I'll buy you a new copy. The whole library if that's what it takes. You don't have that kind of money. Don't I? He grinned. I invested well. The band started a slow jazz number. She leaned into the corner and watched him watch her. What happens now? She asked. Trial will last months. Cameras everywhere. I know. And I need my privacy. My shop. I know. He reached across the table, hand open. But I want to figure out how to make this work, a life just ours. He smiled. If you want that too. She put her hand in his. Yes. I want that. They left at midnight. Rain had stopped, neon reflected in puddles like fallen stars. Alexander took her hand as they walked. You know what I noticed? The night we met, your hand was in your pocket. You weren't holding keys or phone. You were holding another copy of The Stranger, the one you'd left on the bar. You told me you went back for it because it was due Tuesday, but you already had a backup. She stared. She'd forgotten. I noticed everything, he said. The way you tilt your head. The way your voice softens when you say something that matters. You read to me while I was sleeping, and you didn't think I'd hear. He stopped, facing her. You didn't just save me. You saw me. Through every lie, every mask, you stayed anyway. No one has ever seen me like that. And I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose you. You're not going to. She touched his face. I'm not going anywhere. Good. He leaned in, forehead against hers. Because I have a long list of books to read, and I'm planning to check your progress. She laughed. Is that so? Absolutely. He pulled back, eyes shining. Starting with that copy in your pocket. You were the one who fell asleep reading it. I'll finish it. I promise. She looked at his ring, back on his finger. Then at her thumb, where she still wore the one she'd claimed. Alexander, she said softly. I'm glad it was you. He didn't say I love you. He didn't need to. He looked down at the ring, then back at her. I didn't choose you, Lumi. I just stopped running long enough to notice you were already there. She smiled. That's the best thing you've ever said. Better than I'll buy you the whole library? Infinitely. They walked on, hand in hand, through the quiet streets. Rain started again, and he pulled her under a cafe awning. We should get a cab, he said. Probably. Or we could stay. She looked at him, the man who'd noticed her backup book, who'd stayed when he could have run, who'd chosen her. Okay. Let's stay. They stood together, watching the rain wash the city clean. For the first time in a long time, Lumi felt exactly where she was supposed to be. Not a spectator. A participant. A partner. The rain stopped an hour later. They walked the rest of the way to her apartment in silence, hands tangled. At the door, he turned. Lumi. I don't have a plan. Just a file, a trial, and a really old ring. That sounds like a plan to me. It's a plan with holes. Then we'll fill them in. Together. He kissed her, soft, slow, like they had all the time in the world. When he pulled back, she said, You still owe me a copy of that book. He laughed. I'll get you 100. That's too many. You're too many. He kissed her forehead. Too smart, too brave, too everything. Flattery will get you everywhere. Good. He pulled her inside. Because I have a lot more where that came from. They stood in her apartment, the city lights flickering through the window. Alexander looked around, at her shelves, her worn sofa, the life she built alone. Can I stay? He asked. Tonight. Tomorrow. As long as you'll have me? She looked at him, the man who'd written in her book margins, who'd trusted her with his life, who'd noticed the copy in her pocket. As long as you keep reading, she said. He smiled. Deal. They sat together on the sofa, the city humming below them, and for the first time, Lumi wasn't watching someone else's story. She was living her own.
Subscribe to me for more content.